Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Robert Gutsche Jr., also known as Ted Gutsche. I'm a 1999 graduate of Tomah High School, spent my entire early years of education from kindergarten through high school in the Tomah School District, and I'm really honored to be part of this program, so thank you so much for welcoming into that. I want to tell you just a little bit about myself and then maybe give some tips for people who are still doing their studying. I started at Warren's Elementary School and had an amazing experience with the educators there all the way through to high school, where I was editor of the school newspaper, and I started working around 1996 or so when I was 15 or 16 for the Tomah Journal, then on to La Crosse Tribune, other newspapers in Wisconsin and the Midwest, and then did some reporting for the Washington Post and Chicago Tribune. Did my associate's degree at UW-Richland, which is now part of UW-Platteville. Did my undergraduate at University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and then a master's degree at Concordia University of Wisconsin at Mequon, and my PhD in Mass Communication at University of Iowa. For 6 years, I was an assistant professor in journalism at Florida International University in Miami, where I worked on virtual reality and other forms of multimedia journalism with my students. And I'm now in Lancaster, England, in the northwest of England, and I study journalism from a critical perspective now, after so many years of doing journalism, where I look at journalism as a force of oppression and something that can be used for social control. My interest is looking at it from a critical perspective so that maybe we can find ways for journalism to do less harm. My journalism career didn't just start when I was an editor of the high school newspaper in Tomah, but it was maybe an enrichment program when I was still in elementary school, which was actually at the high school one summer, where I was introduced to my first Apple computer, the game Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and we worked on a newspaper. And I started to see maybe then how fun storytelling is and how fun multimedia production was. In fact, we were using the computer at the time, so that was multimedia. We would write things down, but then we'd actually produce it on the computer. And you have to realize this was in the late 80s. And that was still a pretty early thing for an elementary school student to do. So I'm really thankful for the district for giving enrichment programs all the way throughout my career. I know that they've been helpful for students when they're learning. My time in the district also benefited from things that happened outside of school. I had educators who were paying out of their own pocket for me to go to some summer programs so that I could learn how to do better writing, to become a better communicator, for me to learn diverse experiences in teaching, to learn about things while I was still a student about how I could be an educator. And I worked with other peers during my time in high school in particular, where we'd go into our peers' classrooms and talk to them about building healthy relationships, what it means to question and find their identities, and how to be in meaningful relationships with people. We talked about how music and theater and literature could help a person express themselves. And those opportunities that the district provided really gave me an insight when I went off to college and when I went off to the profession that I went into. Even though I started when I was quite young, it really helped me understand people from different perspectives and different backgrounds. And I really think that the engaging pedagogies that my teachers did inside and outside the classroom really had an immense impact on me, not just as a learner, but as a professional. But my time wasn't without struggles. I often had a hard time fitting in. I didn't know what group of people I belonged to. I didn't know what was right and what was wrong in terms of identities, in terms of geographies, in terms of issues of race, sex, genders. I really struggled to understand different things. And now that I'm a father, I'm trying to instill those types of values of diversity and inclusivity in my own children. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to have a family, to extend what my family gave to me and what my family of educators gave to me. But here are some practical things that I thought would be really helpful for people who are on their own educational journey. Find strength in groups that make you, right? That may not necessarily be the peer group that you think you belong in, right? And some of this could have to do with class, race, other ways of identifying. And you may be on the fringe of a group, right? You may move in and out of different social groups, but you have to realize that at some point you are part of a much bigger world out there, and that starts here in Tomah. That starts in your own family rooms. That happens at your own kitchen tables, and that happens in the cafeterias. And so think of yourself as being a part of a global community even now, and start seeking out those experiences, even if those are the experiences that your friends and people around you aren't doing. I'd also encourage you to take classes that you would never think about taking. Take the shop classes, take the art classes, take the classes in Western Civ, not just because they're required, but because they're going to prepare you for things that are way beyond what you'd ever imagine you'd be able to understand about the world. And that's all happening right now. So I've learned things from my education that maybe people didn't really want. I've learned how to try and unpack power structures, how to question industries, and how to question institutions that may not be exactly what my parents or the school or my mentors throughout my life wanted me to learn. But I think that what I've learned comes not just from my teachers, but from the bus drivers, the kitchen staff, the janitorial and maintenance staff, all of the people who surround us in school every single day, not just the people who are leading our classrooms and our teaching and learning, but from the people who create our community. So I really want you to know how thankful I am for being a part of this, and how I hope some of my experiences of going from the high school newspaper editor to writing for international news organizations, to then helping start some of those through digital innovation, to then moving to a different country to learn and to grow, but also to help influence other people, might be influential for you. I think it's important to understand how and where you fit into the world. And I think that Tomah is a place where you're surrounded already by global influences, and really should step out of yourselves and see where those global connections are. I'm very thankful for my teachers, the people who helped me get started at the Tomah Journal, the people who really have left an imprint on my life. It's being passed down to my kids as we speak, and I think to the generations, hopefully, of students I have touched and will continue to influence throughout the rest of my career.